After deliberating for less than 2 hours, the jury in a viral drunk driving case out of Tallahassee, Florida, has found a 56-year-old man by the name of Calvin Riley guilty of driving under the influence. Now, you must be wondering, why are you covering this story? Who cares? It's a driving under the influence case. It's not that big of a deal. It turns out that the story did go viral when the arrest was made last year in 2023. And it was because a portion of the body cam footage, which was highly edited, made it appear as though one of the officers on the scene had planted evidence on Mr. Riley. And so when you look at the raw, unedited footage of the body cam, video, you see something entirely different. And I think it's important to set the record straight. So first, it's worth noting that there were some obvious indicators that Calvin Riley was in fact driving while under the influence. In fact, I grabbed a still frame from the body cam footage itself because when he was pulled over, he didn't pull over on the side of the road. He pulled over in the middle of the road, which is a strange thing to do, to say the least. So that was the first, well, not the first sign. That was one of the signs that he was in fact driving under the influence. He was pulled over, as you can see, and if you take a look at the initial interaction that the officer in this case, which is Tallahassee Police Department Officer Kirsten Oliver, and the way that she spoke to Mr. Riley, you get a sense of what their interaction was like, of course, but you also get a sense of why she decided to pull him over in the first place. So let's take a look at the first clip and then I'll fill in the blanks.
This is the reason why you slowed me down.
Yes, sir. So you don't have any headlights on and you're going really fast down Monroe Street.
Headlight? My headlights automatically on when I'm driving.
They're not on right now.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no problem.
So I think she handled that the way that a police officer should when they pull someone over. He asked her, hey, why are you pulling me over? Why are you slowing me down, is what he asked her. And she very clearly stated, look, you were driving very quickly and erratically and you have your headlights off. And he seemed to be unaware of the fact that his headlights are off. I have to be honest, there have been instances where my headlights were off and I didn't realize it. That's not necessarily an indication that you're drunk, but the interaction that followed kind of made it abundantly clear that he was under the influence. So let's take a look at the next clip because, well, before we do, let me give you some more context. So Riley was unable to provide a driver's license, okay? So that was another issue, and ultimately that ended up being the reason why he was arrested. We're gonna get to that in just a second. Now, despite the narrative that he was originally pulled over because the officer smelled pot, as you just heard in that interaction, that was not the reason why he was pulled over. The officer clearly communicated with him that the stop was due to his driving, his fast driving, and the fact that the headlights were turned off. The officer then speaks to a secondary officer who arrived on the scene and makes clear that the stop was made for a specific purpose. So let's take a look at that.
He didn't have lights on, he's flying down Monroe Street, and when I went to pull him over, he started to get over and then came back over and then is kind of hovering and then stopped. Okay. So if you'll just see if you can see me.
Talk to you first.
So he's got suspended, it's Calvin Riley. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask him, that's why he doesn't have a driver's license, because he knows it's suspended.
So she notes there that he didn't provide a driver's license because he knows that it's suspended. That is ultimately the reason why he is put in handcuffs. We're gonna get to that video in a moment, but first, some more details, more context. The secondary officer at that point goes to speak to Mr. Riley and basically try to find out whether he was in fact under the influence. So let's take a look at how that went down.
Yeah, he said he's coming from Pockets and he had beers at Pockets.
Oh, he didn't tell me that?
I asked him that because he originally said the north side and I said we're out on the north side and he said Pockets.
See, he told me he was coming from Brevard Street. Holy crap, this scared me. So he did say he had beers at Pockets?
Yeah.
Do you get any other indications?
I mean, his speech is slurred and
yeah.
He's got the watery bloodshot eyes and I do have odor.
So at that point, the secondary police officer went to speak to him, asked if he had been drinking that night. He told her that he went to a sports bar known as Pockets Pool and Pub. He confessed to drinking a few beers. And at that point, they asked him if he is willing to do a field sobriety test. Let's take a look.
I want to go more into the beers that you said you had. Yeah. Would you be willing to do some voluntary field sobriety exercises? No? Okay. Here, go ahead and step out of the vehicle for us.
Declines the tests and is asked to step out of the vehicle. He will now be taken into custody for driving with a suspended license.
Your license is suspended, so we're gonna...
No problem.
So as you can see, the reason why they put him in handcuffs and they placed him under arrest is because of the fact that he was driving without a valid license. He had a suspended license. And so a search of his vehicle has not even taken place at this point. He is already arrested, okay? With that in mind, Riley did decline to do a field sobriety test, but things after that start to get a little bit heated because one of the officers indicates that she can smell marijuana. He denies that he has any marijuana on him. That's where he gets a little upset. Let's take a look at how that went down.
So I smell marijuana in your vehicle. Did you recently smell?
No, let me tell you something, man.
Stand right here.
Let me tell you something.
Stand
I don't know. You heard what you said. You smell marijuana, right?
Yeah.
I don't even smoke. So
Okay.
what? But you come with that. That's lip gloss.
Okay.
Okay? This right
Do you
here.
have a medical marijuana card?
No, I don't smoke nothing.
Have you recently smoked hemp?
I don't smoke nothing.
Okay.
So you find that good? That's my money right there for my job.
I got you.
So
I'm
let
not
me
saying
tell you
that's right.
something. You see my back of my shirt? What that show? I show you I'm a ball. You understand what I'm saying? So what you're saying is you smell marijuana. You're alive.
Now they did eventually do a search of his vehicle. They did not find marijuana, but I did want to show that video mostly because of what the police officer said she smelled, how he reacted to it. I think it's also important to hear how he's speaking because that was one of the other indicators that he was potentially under the influence when he was behind the wheel in that car. So at that point, they decide to basically figure out if they have what's necessary to search his car, probable cause. So they suspect that he's drunk, but do they have enough reasons to believe that he is under the influence to justify them searching the vehicle? And they have a conversation about that. That's what you're gonna hear in the next video. Let's take a look.
Wow, he reeks of alcohol. Is there enough, like before that?
Okay, so they're talking about it. Is there enough? And they, at that point, feel that they have enough evidence indicating that he was likely drinking and driving or under the influence of something and driving, right? Remember, one of the police officers spoke to him. He said that he had been at a bar, he had a few beers, he pulled over in the middle of the road, he had been driving erratically. So all of those things led them to feel that they had the probable cause necessary to search his vehicle. And at that point, they decide to search his vehicle. So let's take a look at how that search went down in the raw, unedited body cam footage.
Okay, nothing in there. Smell this. It smells like alcohol. Yep. Of course, good on this. Yeah. Okay.
So at first, the first thing that they find is a tumbler with alcohol in it. So that was another indication that he had been drinking and driving. Now, what you're about to watch is the most controversial part of the body cam footage because in the video that was released earlier, the one that was heavily edited, it appeared as though one of the officers had planted evidence in the car, meaning she had planted an open container of alcohol in the vehicle, right? So let's take a look at what actually happened and then I'll fill in the blanks and explain a little more when we come back.
Hey, there's vodka in his seat, like right here in a pouch in his seat. Vodka was found in this pouch in his seat.
So right there, you see that she did in fact discover a small bottle of vodka in the vehicle, right? In a pouch in his seat. So she takes it out, she shows it. Keep in mind, she's wearing a body cam. If you're gonna plant evidence, you probably shouldn't be wearing a body cam, or you should turn the body cam off. But then she makes a bad decision. And I will say it's a bad decision because she shouldn't have done this. Now, some police departments have a policy of, if you find alcohol in a vehicle, right, you pour it out before you impound the car. I don't know if that's the policy for the Tallahassee Police Department, but that is what everyone saw in the initial video that went viral, right? They see her take that bottle of vodka and essentially pour it out and then place it back in the vehicle. And they felt, the people who have been criticizing these two police officers felt that that was evidence of them planting evidence in his vehicle. So here's that moment, let's take a look. Officer who believed the bottle was already opened broke the seal. She proceeded to follow department practice, which is to discard open alcohol. All of the contents of the bottle were emptied. The officer put the bottle back into the vehicle as it held no evidentiary value. And so that was the moment that led to all sorts of rumors, allegations against the police officers who had responded to this incident, who had pulled him over. And Officer Oliver, right? So one of the officers, the one who initially pulled him over, opened a bottle of vodka, a bottle that had never been opened before. This is what the defense attorney had said during the trial. You hear her break the seal, which is true, pour it out, which is true, and put it back in the car, which is true. Then she used that evidence against him. That part is not true. That bottle of alcohol was not used as evidence against him. There were all sorts of other things that they had found that were used as evidence against him in this trial. And it was persuasive enough for the jury to make a decision that he was guilty after deliberating for under 2 hours. But understand that he was not arrested for having an open container of alcohol in his vehicle. He was arrested for driving with a suspended license. He was pulled over because he was driving erratically, which I am honestly willing to believe, considering he pulled over in the middle of the road and he didn't pull over on the shoulder or on the side of the road. And I just think that there was a lot of context missing in the original reporting of this story, and I can totally understand why people would be misled by that incomplete reporting. But when you look at the full body cam footage, and we will link to it in the description box of this video so you can watch the whole video for yourself, you see how everything really went down, and there's really no indication that anyone planted any evidence to incriminate this man. It appears that he is in fact under the influence. Now, according to CNN, during the trial, the officer admitted opening the bottle and putting it back in the car was a mistake. She and another responding officer denied the bottle was used as evidence to support the DUI charge. And again, to be clear, there were other factors that were used as evidence to support the DUI charge. And also the arguments about the open container of alcohol being planted makes no sense, since Riley was never even charged with having an open container of alcohol in his vehicle. Originally, Riley was charged with driving under the influence and driving with a suspended or revoked license. That latter charge was dropped during the trial. Jurors had to decide whether Riley was the operator of the vehicle and if prosecutors proved he was impaired at the time of his arrest. And apparently prosecutors did a decent job in proving that, because the jury did in fact find him guilty. And look, here's what they use. This is what they turned to make their case, right? He admitted to them on the scene that he had been drinking. The fact that he pulled over in the middle of the road shows that he was inebriated, okay? He was slurring his speech in the video as well. Obviously, if you watch the full body cam footage, you'll hear more of him speaking and conversing with the officers, and you can hear his slurred speech. Now, before sentencing, Riley apologized and took responsibility, which I think is also a missing piece to this story that doesn't get reported. So this was right before he was sentenced. Here's what he had to say while he was in court.
I accept the responsibility for getting upset and let my emotions get over my judgment of just being a person and staying calm. Like I said before, I was only going through this emotional stuff because the past I've been through with law enforcement, and when I started going through that night with these officers, it was just a repeat of what I experienced growing up here. And it made me very upset and angry. And if anyone was hurt in that moment, I apologize, but at the same time, I was hurt too.
Now, as for his punishment, remember he's drinking and driving, they found him guilty. Well, what was he sentenced to? Riley, 56, was sentenced to spend 10 days in the Leon County Jail. He was also sentenced to 6 months of probation. As part of his sentence, Riley must also attend a DUI course, perform 50 hours of community service, participate in random breathalyzer tests, and his driver's license will be suspended for 6 months, which I think is a perfectly fine punishment considering how serious it is when someone decides to get behind the wheel when they are drunk. Because at that point, it's not just about their behavior possibly impacting them and their life because they could very easily crash, cause an accident. But obviously it's an incredibly selfish decision because there are other people on the road. And I personally have lost someone that I've known to a drunk driver. So drunk driving is a serious thing. And to provide cover for anyone who's drunk driving or to minimize the severity of that issue in order to engage in what I've been seeing online about this man and about this case, I think is just unacceptable, right? I feel like the drunk driving really took a back seat, and the seriousness of drunk driving took a back seat in this story because the focus was on the race of the police officer who pulled him over because she was a white woman, and the race of Riley, a black man. And I think that when you see everything through the lens of race, sometimes it can blind you to what the facts are. And what the facts are in this case is that a man made a decision to get drunk, get behind the wheel of a vehicle, and drive erratically in early morning hours. And I did not see a moment in that body cam footage, and I watched it from beginning to end, showing the officers disrespect him or in any way violate his rights. But that is not the narrative that you're gonna hear from one half of the political spectrum that is just absolutely convinced that they planted evidence in this man's vehicle. Remember, he had a tumbler with alcohol in it. It wasn't just about the bottle of vodka, and the bottle of vodka was not used as evidence against him in this trial. Now, some people have been critical of the police officers because a few minor details of these interaction were changed after they had filed their police report on it. But when you're in the moment of it, right? Sometimes when you're having a conversation or you're explaining to the other officer what you experienced, you might not get every single detail correct, right? That's why it's important to review the body cam footage, and when you put the details in a police report, you get those details correct. So there was a moment where she was speaking to another officer and she had said that there was an open container of alcohol in the vehicle. There was an open container of alcohol in the vehicle. It was the tumbler, probably what she was referring to. She believed that the closed bottle, the sealed bottle of vodka was in fact opened, but it wasn't. I mean, you can hear it click open as she breaks the seal. But again, if we're gonna be hyper focused on that one thing, which is the bottle of vodka, what that ends up doing is it ends up ignoring all of the other evidence surrounding this case, which made it abundantly clear that Riley was in fact drunk behind the wheel. So I think this is a teachable moment because it's important to wait and see what the full details of a specific case or a specific story happen to be. I know that people get real fired up about these stories and they want to jump on it immediately. Try to avoid doing that. Wait until you have access to the full body cam footage and don't rely on highly edited videos that other people put out there as they narrate to you what they believe happened. And one final thing I'll say about this. This is one of the viral cases that's now being used to make an argument that police officers should no longer be allowed to do traffic stops. I think that would be a disastrous policy. I think that would be a terrible idea. In Los Angeles, where the city council is in fact unfortunately considering this, we're currently dealing with things like street takeovers. We're dealing with hit and run incidents where pedestrians are getting hit by cars, by drivers who then flee the scene. The idea that we don't need police officers to do traffic stops is absolutely ridiculous. And in place of police officers, they want these unarmed ambassadors to do the traffic stops, completely ignoring the fact that we live in a country that is swimming with guns. We've got a ton of guns. We have a ton of people who have guns in their vehicles. The idea that we're gonna have like unarmed, community ambassadors do traffic stops, to me is a ridiculous idea. If we have issues with policing, if we want to provide better training and reforms, we should focus on that. But the idea of doing away with policing overall is just not something that I can get behind. And I certainly will not get behind the idea of using a case like this that was misreported wildly as an excuse for pursuing those types of policies.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.